So the first thing I had to do is decide, what is this scenario really about? And in your traditional RPGs, D&D, adventure RPGs, you tend to see that this what the scenario is about tends to be pretty self-evident. Yes, there is this very new approach, I'm saying new in the last 20 years, of making stories out of these games, making them much more sophisticated in terms of plot, in terms of narrative, all these other things. But, historically, adventure games are kind of find bad guy, kill bad guy, take treasure, move on to next bad guy. Not always, of course, because people interweave a lot of character details and backstory details and all that. And they are often repetitious and linear, for lack of a better word. Whereas I've always found Call of Cthulhu to be more interesting. Now Call of Cthulhu and all these other sorts of games can fall into that same trap. What cult will we defeat today to stop the great old one? Which is basically this, in some ways this story conforms to elements of that. But the trick is always with any game to underpin some other kind of theme or challenge or environment that makes it interesting. And in this case, I wanted this to be about as much about the isolation and the cold and the climate being dangerous as having to worry about this supernatural threat, these agents of darkness that the players characters may not confront. And this is also largely investigative. And I had to write in, this kind of outline. Well, here's a timeline. So I started by writing up a timeline. Now, one of my favorite things about Call of Cthulhu have always been the timelines that intersect with the real world and real world events, but Cthulhu-ized. Add Fortiana, add unusual occurrences, take some weird thing that happened in our real history, and then tie it to the great old ones or to, the Lovecraftian universe. So that was always really fascinating to me. Being a fan of the paranormal, in the true sense, not necessarily the modern incarnation of paranormal TV or whatever, but paranormal in the true sense of there's something else going on out there that we don't understand, which is the underpinning of Charles Fort and his work, which was actually a really huge inspiration for all the early Weird Tale writers. Charles Fort, if you don't know, was a writer and a researcher around the turn of the century who collected stories of weird things. He wasn't so much concerned with ghosts or Bigfoot or UFOs specifically, but things like rains of frogs, which were documented. Let's see, mysterious lights, strange earth noises. And these are all, and there is a little bit in there that obviously ties into modern, paranormal and parapsychological and UFOs and all that, and cryptids. There's some obvious thought. You could be, well, this could be that. But what he did is, he collected all these in a very factual kind of way. It wasn't that mystical, paranormal researcher vision we have today of a bunch of guys going in a house with a tape recorder or some device and yelling at ghosts that may or may not be there. He very clearly outlined the details of these strange occurrences, preferably as he could get first-hand accounts. And sometimes, if not, he would use a second or a third-hand account. So what happened then once the larger fiction writing universe got a hold of this is it started to be incorporated into this weird fiction, including by H.P. Lovecraft and all these other authors that decided to kind of introduce this. I just recently read the Windwalker, the story of Ithaca by August Derleth, and it's amazing how much resonance to Dyatlov Pass there is in there, the Dyatlov Pass account. Now, of course, Dyatlov Pass was later, and actually I don't know the date that it was written. August Derleth was written in 33. Ithaca was written in 33. And Ithaca, if you don't know, the Windwalker is kind of his version of the Wendigo, or the elemental spirit of the cold and madness that comes with the cold. But there's definite resonance when we hear the account later of the Outlaw Pass and other people being lost in the cold wastes of things that they experience. So there was this natural kind of intersection of these weird stories and these weird accounts, and then the later fictionalization of these stories. And in the early editions, I think I'd have to go through and look at the latest editions. I haven't read the timeline in the newest edition of Call of Cthulhu. I've mostly just been using it as a consultant book. I have to go back and really go through the lore and the data part of it, and see how that's been updated to last year, 2 years ago, whenever it was released. Well, the seventh edition was released a few years ago now, but I have the special edition from last year. And it's really kind of cool to see how Call of Cthulhu in particular has taken these real life things like shipwrecks and mysterious lights and I don't know, earthquakes, major earthquakes, sounds that are unexplained, and then used them in the Lovecraft universe, used them in the Call of Cthulhu game as a seed for an idea. And I always thought that was so brilliant. And that's what I did here. Now, this is a fictional account of the prelude to the story as it is told. But then I just start off with, how did I want to lay this out? What did I want to say about this? And I decided that I'm just going to actually screen because this is really annoying me. Sorry. Display capture. There we go. There we go. Now it's not jumping back and forth when I scroll. Now let's make this a little larger. So there we go. That's what I wanted. I don't know why this. I'm sure there's a setting to fix the screen, but it was just bugging me. So then I had to decide, as a scenario designer, what was I going to do? And I start out with the Keeper's Summary, which tells you the whole backstory, and in that is this timeline. Then I started off with a little bit about Cape Cod 1922. Now again, the other thing that's always interested me about this game in particular is the amount of real world research you can do and dive into. And if you who have seen my Down Darker Trail setting, you will know that I actually decided to go with go with the town of Pinos Altos when I found an old survey map of the town, and here I've got one of Provincetown in Cape Cod of 1920. So I'm gonna guess 1922 isn't radically different, but it's even got some of the old storefronts and layout. And I think this is fascinating. This is why I love this game and games similar to this.